My name is Sarah Mitchell. I've been a nurse for 15 years, and today, I am going to tell you a story that haunts me to this day, a story that most hospitals prefer to keep buried in the deepest files far from the public eye. Before we begin, if you enjoy real and disturbing stories from the world of medicine, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos, and comment below what you thought of this story. This really helps the channel grow. What I am about to reveal today happened at a hospital in the United States during the 1990s, and involves a male nurse that everyone considered dedicated, caring, and exemplary. But behind that facade of an exemplary professional hid something much darker, something no one could imagine. This is the story of the nurse who tortured terminal patients during the night. And what he did to these people will freeze your blood. It all started when family members of terminal patients began reporting strange behaviors. Their loved ones, who were already debilitated and in the final stages of serious illnesses, showed inexplicable signs of extreme distress during the night. Strange marks on their bodies, expressions of terror frozen on their faces even after death, and confused reports from semi-conscious patients about a male nurse who entered the rooms when everyone was asleep. Initially, the hospital administration dismissed these complaints as delusions caused by heavy medication or hallucinations common in terminal patients. But some nurses began to suspect. I myself spoke with a colleague who worked at that hospital at the time, and she told me chilling details that were never publicly disclosed. The male nurse in question worked the night shift, specifically in the palliative care ward, where terminal patients stayed, those who no longer had a chance of cure and were just waiting for the end. He always volunteered for the most difficult shifts, the ones nobody wanted to take, and everyone thought this was admirable. After all, caring for terminal patients is emotionally draining, and having someone willing to do that was seen as an act of compassion. But the truth was completely different. He chose these shifts because he knew that during the early morning hours there would be less supervision, fewer witnesses, and patients would be more vulnerable. The palliative care ward was in an isolated corridor of the hospital, far from the intense movement of other areas, which gave him all the privacy he needed to execute his heinous acts. The first signs began to appear when a nursing assistant noticed that certain patients who were relatively stable during the day showed sudden deterioration during the night, always on his shift. She began to pay attention and noticed a disturbing pattern. Patients who could sleep peacefully would wake up in panic, sweating cold, with accelerated heartbeats, but couldn't explain exactly what had happened. Some mumbled about pain, about someone touching them, about horrible sensations, but their memories were fragmented, confused. The hospital administration completely ignored these observations, claiming they were just normal reactions to medications and the natural progression of diseases. BLOCK 44:30 to 6 o'clock. What this male nurse did was methodically calculated and deeply disturbing. During his night rounds, he identified the most vulnerable patients, those who were sedated or in a semi-conscious state, and performed unnecessary and painful medical procedures without any clinical justification. He applied injections in extremely painful locations, repositioned catheters brutally, squeezed surgical wounds, manipulated inflamed areas, all while coldly observing the patient's reactions of pain and desperation. But the most disturbing thing was that he did this slowly and deliberately, as if he were conducting an experiment, studying each moan, each contortion of pain. Documents that came to light years later revealed that he kept detailed personal notes about each patient's reactions, minute descriptions of how each one reacted to pain, how long they took to lose consciousness, which methods caused the most suffering, and there's more. He also manipulated medication dosages. He reduced painkillers so that patients would feel more pain, or administered substances that caused extreme discomfort without any medical purpose whatsoever. All of this recorded in his personal notebooks that were found later.
In these notebooks, he described with clinical coldness each torture session, using medical terms to mask the brutality of what he was doing. It was as if he were documenting scientific procedures, when in reality he was simply torturing defenseless people who were already dying. The situation escalated when a family decided to install a hidden camera in their father's room, a 72-year-old man with terminal cancer. They had noticed that every time they visited in the morning, the father was visibly shaken, with new marks on his body and signs of terror in his eyes. The recording captured something absolutely shocking. Around 3 a.m, the male nurse entered the room, checked if the patient was alone, and then began to perform extremely painful procedures without any medical necessity. He twisted the patient's arms, pressed sensitive areas, manipulated open wounds, all while the elderly man moaned in pain, trying uselessly to pull away. The most disturbing thing was the nurse's expression, completely indifferent, almost bored, as if he were performing a routine task. When the family presented the recording to the hospital administration, there was an initial attempt to cover up the case. The hospital offered a financial settlement in exchange for the family's silence, claiming that a scandal would harm the institution and other patients. But the family refused and went to the police. The investigation that followed revealed a pattern of behavior that had been happening for at least 3 years. Dozens of families began to come forward, reporting similar situations with their loved ones. Patients who died during that period showed signs of inexplicable physical trauma, injuries that didn't match their medical conditions, and hospital records that had been tampered with to hide this evidence. During the trial, even more disturbing details came to light. Forensic psychologists who evaluated the male nurse determined that he had a deep need for control and power over completely defenseless people. He chose terminal patients because he knew they wouldn't have the strength to resist or report, and because many of the symptoms he caused could easily be attributed to the natural progression of their diseases. It was the perfect crime, hidden within an environment where suffering and death were already expected. He confessed that he felt a strange satisfaction in having total control over these people's lives and deaths, in being the last thing they experienced before dying.
The case raised profound questions about hospital supervision, especially during night shifts and in palliative care wards. How can someone commit atrocities like this for so long without being detected? The answer is disturbing and simple: lack of adequate vigilance, work overload on teams, and an institutional culture that prioritized the hospital's reputation above patient safety. Many complaints were ignored or minimized because confronting the situation would mean admitting serious failures in the system. Hospitals across the country were forced to review their security protocols, implement more rigorous monitoring systems, and create more efficient reporting channels. This male nurse was convicted and is serving multiple life sentences, but the trauma he caused remains. Families who lost their loved ones at that hospital carry the pain of knowing that the last moments of their beloved ones' lives were marked by unnecessary suffering and cruelty. And the most frightening thing is to think how many other similar cases may be happening at this exact moment in hospitals around the world. Hidden in the shadows of night shifts, protected by patients' vulnerability and lack of adequate supervision. This story deeply marked me as a healthcare professional. It constantly reminds me of the immense responsibility we have over human lives in their most fragile moments. Terminal patients deserve dignity, comfort, and compassion in their final days, not terror and torture. If you liked this video, don't forget to leave your like. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and comment below what you thought of this story. Share it so more people know this reality, and we can all be more attentive. See you in the next video with more real stories from the world of medicine. Until then, take care.